In 1981, 24-year-old David Kerwin jumped into a thermal pool at Yellowstone National Park to rescue his friend's dog. The water temperature was 202 degrees Fahrenheit. Kerwin suffered third-degree burns over 100% of his body and died the next day. His final words to rescuers were reportedly, "That was stupid. How bad am I?" The dog also died. This incident represents something far more disturbing than a tragic accident. It reveals a fundamental disconnect between what visitors believe Yellowstone to be and what it actually is. Every year, over 4 million people enter America's first national park expecting a controlled, sanitized wilderness experience. What they encounter instead is one of the most geologically violent and unpredictable environments on Earth. Yellowstone sits atop an active supervolcano. The ground beneath your feet contains enough magma to bury the entire continental United States under a layer of ash. The park's famous geothermal features, the geysers, hot springs, and mud pots that draw millions of tourists, are direct manifestations of this underground inferno. Yet somehow, the National Park Service has managed to create an illusion of safety around what is essentially a massive geological time bomb. The statistics tell a different story than the postcards. Since Yellowstone's establishment in 1872, over 350 people have died within its boundaries. More than 50 of those deaths occurred in thermal features alone. Visitors have been boiled alive, dissolved in acidic pools, and killed by sudden eruptions of superheated water and steam. Others have been mauled by grizzly bears, gored by bison, struck by lightning, frozen to death, and lost forever in the park's 2.2 million acres of wilderness. But here's what makes Yellowstone's danger truly insidious. The park's infrastructure creates a false sense of security. Boardwalks lead visitors directly over pools of near-boiling water. Paved roads wind through territories patrolled by apex predators. Gift shops sell postcards featuring animals that could kill a human being in seconds. The entire experience is designed to make deadly wilderness feel like a theme park. The National Park Service faces an impossible paradox. They must protect both the natural environment and the millions of people who visit it each year. This has led to a careful balance of information. Enough warning to avoid legal liability, but not so much that it discourages tourism. The result is a sanitized presentation of danger that often fails to convey the true risks involved in entering one of North America's most volatile ecosystems. Consider the thermal features that make Yellowstone famous. The park contains over 10,000 geothermal features, including approximately 500 geysers, more than half of all the geysers on Earth. These features exist because Yellowstone sits atop a magma chamber that lies just 3 to 8 miles beneath the surface. In most places on Earth, you would need to drill 25 miles down to reach magma. At Yellowstone, it's practically at your feet. The water in these thermal pools often exceeds 200 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause third-degree burns in less than a second. Many pools are also highly acidic, with pH levels comparable to battery acid. Some contain concentrations of hydrogen sulfide and other toxic gases that can cause respiratory failure. Yet visitors routinely approach these features with the casual attitude they might bring to a city fountain. The boardwalks and barriers around thermal areas create an illusion of control, but they cannot eliminate the fundamental danger. Thermal features are inherently unstable. New hot springs can appear overnight. Existing pools can suddenly increase in temperature or acidity. Geysers can erupt without warning, sending scalding water and steam hundreds of feet into the air. The ground itself can collapse, revealing new thermal features or expanding existing ones. In 1981, 24-year-old David Kerwin fell into a thermal pool near Fountain Paint Pot. His friend attempted a rescue but was forced back by the extreme heat. Kerwin's body was never recovered. The pool was too hot and acidic for divers to enter safely. Park officials believe his remains were completely dissolved by the thermal water. This case illustrates another disturbing aspect of Yellowstone's thermal features. They can erase evidence of their victims. Bodies that fall into certain pools are never recovered because the combination of heat, acidity, and mineral content literally dissolves human tissue. Families are left without closure, and the true number of thermal deaths may be higher than official records indicate. The psychological impact of these environments extends beyond their physical dangers. Yellowstone's thermal areas create a sensory experience unlike anything most people have encountered. The constant sound of bubbling water, the smell of sulfur, the sight of steam rising from the earth. All of these elements can induce a trance-like state that impairs judgment. Visitors report feeling hypnotized by the otherworldly landscape, leading to poor decision-making and increased risk-taking behavior. Dr. Lee Whittlesey, Yellowstone's former historian, has documented every known death in the park's history. His research reveals patterns that challenge common assumptions about wilderness safety. Many thermal deaths involve experienced outdoorsmen, not inexperienced tourists. The victims often understand the general danger but underestimate specific risks. They assume that if a boardwalk leads to a location, that location must be safe. They believe that if other people are present, someone will help if something goes wrong. These assumptions prove fatal in an environment where help may be impossible to provide. The case of Colin Scott illustrates this point tragically. In June 2016, the 23-year-old Oregon man was searching for a place to hot pot, the illegal practice of soaking in thermal pools. Scott and his sister left the designated boardwalk area near Norris Geyser Basin and approached an unauthorized thermal feature. The ground around the pool was thin and unstable. Scott fell through and into water that was near boiling temperature. His sister called for help, but by the time park rangers arrived, Scott had disappeared entirely. The pool's extreme heat and acidity had dissolved his body completely. Only his wallet and flip-flops remained. This incident highlights another aspect of Yellowstone's hidden dangers: the practice of hot potting. Despite being illegal and extremely dangerous, some visitors attempt to soak in thermal pools, believing they can find features with comfortable temperatures. This practice has resulted in multiple deaths and severe injuries. The appeal seems to stem from a desire to have an authentic wilderness experience, but it demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of what these thermal features actually are. The thermal dangers at Yellowstone extend beyond the obvious pools and geysers. The park contains numerous unmarked thermal features hidden throughout the backcountry. Hikers can encounter boiling springs in areas that appear completely normal. Some thermal features are concealed beneath thin crusts of mineral deposits that can collapse under a person's weight. Others are hidden underwater in lakes and streams, creating invisible hazards for swimmers and waders. In 1988, a park employee named Matthew Trishman was conducting research in the backcountry when he stepped through a thin thermal crust and fell into a hidden hot spring. He suffered severe burns to his legs and spent months recovering from his injuries. Trishman was an experienced park worker who understood Yellowstone's dangers, yet he still fell victim to a thermal feature that was essentially invisible until it was too late. The wildlife at Yellowstone presents another category of hidden danger that the park's tourist-friendly image tends to obscure. Yellowstone is home to both grizzly bears and black bears, mountain lions, wolves, and the largest free-roaming bison herd in the United States. These animals are not the docile creatures that appear in nature documentaries. They are wild predators and prey animals operating according to instincts that have kept them alive for thousands of years. Bison, in particular, represent a danger that most visitors completely underestimate. These animals can weigh up to 2,000 pounds and run at speeds of 35 miles per hour. They are responsible for more injuries at Yellowstone than any other animal, yet tourists routinely approach them for photographs. The park's roads and developed areas create situations where humans and bison encounter each other in close proximity, often with dangerous results. In July 2015, a 43-year-old woman from Mississippi was gored by a bison near Old Faithful. She had approached within 5 to 10 feet of the animal to take a photograph. The bison charged and tossed her into the air, causing serious injuries that required hospitalization. This incident was one of 5 bison attacks that occurred in Yellowstone during 2015 alone. The frequency of bison attacks reveals something troubling about visitor behavior at Yellowstone. Despite clear warnings about maintaining distance from wildlife, people consistently ignore safety guidelines. The park recommends staying at least 25 yards away from bison, but visitors regularly approach much closer. Some attempt to pose for selfies with bison in the background. Others try to pet or feed the animals, treating them like livestock rather than wild animals capable of killing a human being. The psychology behind these behaviors is complex. Many visitors come to Yellowstone with expectations shaped by Disney movies, nature documentaries, and social media posts that present wildlife as friendly and approachable. The park's developed areas, with their paved roads and visitor centers, reinforce the impression that this is a controlled environment where normal rules don't apply. The presence of other tourists creates a false sense of security. If everyone else is approaching the animals, it must be safe. Grizzly bears present an even more serious threat, though encounters are less frequent than bison incidents. Yellowstone is home to approximately 150 grizzly bears, and these animals are apex predators with no natural enemies except humans. A grizzly bear can run faster than a horse, climb trees, and has a bite force of over 1,200 pounds per square inch. They are also highly intelligent and adaptable, capable of learning human behavior patterns and exploiting them. The last fatal grizzly attack in Yellowstone occurred in August 2015, when 63-year-old Lance Crosby was killed while hiking alone near Elephant Back Loop Trail. Crosby was an experienced hiker and seasonal park employee who understood bear safety protocols. He was carrying bear spray and had hiked in bear country for years, yet he still fell victim to a grizzly attack that park officials believe was predatory in nature, meaning the bear viewed him as prey rather than a threat. This case illustrates a disturbing reality about grizzly encounters. Even perfect adherence to safety protocols cannot guarantee survival. Bear spray is effective in most encounters, but not all. Making noise while hiking reduces the chance of surprising a bear, but doesn't eliminate the possibility of an encounter. Traveling in groups provides some protection, but bears have attacked groups as well. The fundamental truth is that humans are not the dominant species in grizzly habitat, regardless of how safe the park's infrastructure makes them feel. The wolf population at Yellowstone adds another layer of complexity to the park's predator dynamics. Wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995 after being absent for nearly 70 years. The reintroduction has been largely successful from an ecological standpoint, but it has also created new risks for visitors. While wolf attacks on humans are extremely rare, the presence of wolves affects the behavior of other animals and can create unpredictable situations. Wolves are also highly intelligent pack hunters that have learned to exploit human behavior. They have been observed following hiking trails, apparently understanding that humans create opportunities for scavenging. Some wolves have become habituated to human presence, losing their natural fear and becoming more likely to approach people. This habituation process is particularly dangerous because it's often irreversible. Once a wolf loses its fear of humans, it typically must be removed from the population. Dr. Kenneth Kamler, a physician who has studied survival psychology in extreme environments, describes this phenomenon as summit fever, the tendency to continue pursuing a goal despite increasing risks. At Yellowstone, summit fever might manifest as continuing a hike despite approaching darkness, attempting to photograph wildlife at close range, or ignoring weather warnings to complete planned activities. The park's infrastructure contributes to this psychological dynamic by creating what researchers call risk compensation. When people perceive that safety measures are in place, they often increase their risk-taking behavior to maintain their preferred level of excitement. Boardwalks around thermal features may actually encourage closer approaches to dangerous areas. Well-marked trails may lead hikers to venture into backcountry areas they would otherwise avoid. The case of Gabby Petito, whose remains were found in nearby Grand Teton National Park in September 2021, highlighted the risks faced by solo travelers and couples in remote wilderness areas. While the circumstances of Petito's death involved domestic violence rather than environmental hazards, her case demonstrated how quickly people can disappear in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. The vast, remote landscape that makes the region beautiful also makes it an ideal place to conceal crimes or accidents. Search and rescue operations at Yellowstone face unique challenges that most visitors never consider. The park's size requires coordination between multiple agencies, including the National Park Service, local sheriff's departments, and volunteer search teams. Weather conditions can ground aircraft for days at a time. Thermal areas are too dangerous for ground searches, and some terrain is inaccessible even to experienced rescue personnel. The cost of search and rescue operations at Yellowstone is substantial, both in financial terms and human resources. Complex searches can involve dozens of personnel and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. The emotional toll on rescue workers is also significant, particularly when searches end in recovery rather than rescue. Many Yellowstone rangers have participated in multiple fatality investigations, creating cumulative stress that affects their personal lives and professional performance. The park's medical facilities are limited compared to the number of visitors and the severity of potential injuries. The Lake Hospital operates only during summer months and provides basic emergency care. Serious injuries require helicopter evacuation to hospitals in Billings, Montana, or Idaho Falls, Idaho. Flights that can take hours and are impossible in bad weather. This delay between injury and definitive medical care contributes to the severity of outcomes in many Yellowstone accidents. The legal and ethical questions surrounding Yellowstone's dangers are complex and often controversial. The National Park Service has a duty to protect visitors, but also a mandate to preserve natural resources and provide access to wilderness experiences. Increased safety measures often conflict with the goal of maintaining natural conditions. Fencing around all thermal features would reduce deaths, but would also fundamentally alter the visitor experience. The park's warning systems represent a compromise between safety and access, but they may not be adequate for the risks involved. Signs warning visitors to stay on designated trails or maintain distance from wildlife are common, but they cannot convey the full scope of potential dangers. Many visitors ignore warnings entirely, viewing them as overly cautious legal disclaimers rather than genuine safety information. The phenomenon of disaster tourism has emerged around some of Yellowstone's most dangerous areas. Certain thermal features have become popular destinations specifically because of their association with deaths and accidents. Social media has amplified this trend, with visitors posting photos and videos from dangerous locations to demonstrate their willingness to take risks. This behavior creates additional safety challenges for park personnel and may encourage others to take similar risks. The long-term geological instability of Yellowstone represents a category of danger that extends far beyond individual visitor safety. The Yellowstone caldera is an active volcanic system that has erupted catastrophically 3 times in the past 2.1 million years. The most recent eruption occurred 640,000 years ago and created the current caldera structure. Scientists monitor the system continuously for signs of renewed activity, but the timeline for future eruptions is measured in geological rather than human terms. Current volcanic activity at Yellowstone includes ongoing ground deformation, earthquake swarms, and changes in thermal feature behavior. While these phenomena are normal for an active volcanic system, they also indicate that the underlying magma chamber remains active and potentially dangerous. A major eruption at Yellowstone would affect not just park visitors, but potentially the entire North American continent. The psychological impact of living and working in such an environment affects park employees as well as visitors. Rangers and other park personnel develop coping mechanisms for dealing with constant exposure to danger and death. Some become hypervigilant, seeing potential threats everywhere. Others develop a form of protective numbness that allows them to function in high-risk situations. The turnover rate among Yellowstone employees is higher than at many other national parks, partly due to the stress of working in such a dangerous environment. The seasonal nature of Yellowstone's visitation creates additional safety challenges. Most visitors come during the summer months when weather conditions are most favorable, but this concentration of people increases the likelihood of accidents and complicates rescue operations. Winter visitors face different but equally serious dangers, including extreme cold, avalanche risk, and limited access to emergency services. The park's wildlife management policies reflect the tension between safety and natural resource protection. Problem animals, those that have become habituated to humans or shown aggressive behavior, are sometimes relocated or euthanized. These decisions are controversial and emotionally difficult for park personnel, but they reflect the reality that some individual animals pose unacceptable risks to human safety. The educational challenge facing Yellowstone is enormous. How do you convey the reality of wilderness dangers to visitors who may have no previous experience with wild animals or extreme environments? Traditional safety presentations and printed materials have limited effectiveness, particularly with visitors who speak different languages or come from urban backgrounds with no wilderness experience. Some researchers have proposed more immersive educational approaches, including virtual reality experiences that simulate dangerous encounters or mandatory safety briefings for all backcountry users. However, these approaches face practical and financial constraints, and their effectiveness in changing behavior remains unproven. The cultural dimensions of risk perception also complicate safety education at Yellowstone. Visitors from different countries and backgrounds bring varying attitudes toward nature, authority, and personal responsibility. Some cultures emphasize individual risk-taking as a form of personal expression, while others prioritize collective safety and adherence to rules. Park personnel must navigate these cultural differences while maintaining consistent safety. Negative publicity from high-profile deaths can affect visitation numbers and local tourism revenue. Insurance costs for park operations and concessionaires reflect the high-risk environment. Legal settlements and judgments can cost millions of dollars, money that might otherwise be spent on safety improvements or resource protection. The philosophical questions raised by Yellowstone's dangers touch on fundamental issues of human relationship with nature. Should wilderness areas be made safer through increased infrastructure and regulation, or does this defeat the purpose of preserving natural conditions? How much responsibility do individuals bear for their own safety in wilderness settings? What level of risk is acceptable in exchange for access to natural wonders? These questions become more pressing as visitation to national parks continues to increase. Yellowstone now receives over 4 million visitors annually, a number that strains both infrastructure and natural resources. Each additional visitor increases the statistical likelihood of accidents and fatalities, but also provides economic benefits to local communities and political support for park funding. The training and psychological preparation of park personnel reflects the reality of working in a high-risk environment. Rangers receive extensive training in emergency medical care, search and rescue techniques, and crisis management. They also receive counseling and support services to help them cope with the emotional impact of dealing with accidents and fatalities. The career trajectory of many Yellowstone Rangers includes multiple traumatic incidents that can affect their personal lives and professional effectiveness. Some develop post-traumatic stress symptoms from repeated exposure to death and injury. Others become advocates for increased safety measures or more restrictive access policies. The human cost of maintaining public access to dangerous natural areas is often invisible to visitors, but very real for the people who work there. The scientific research conducted at Yellowstone provides valuable insights into both natural processes and human behavior in extreme environments. Studies of thermal feature chemistry help predict which areas pose the greatest risks to human contact. Wildlife behavior research informs management decisions about animal relocations and habitat modifications. Visitor behavior studies reveal patterns that can guide safety education efforts. However, the research also reveals the limitations of human ability to predict and control natural systems. Thermal features can change rapidly and unpredictably. Wildlife behavior varies with individual animals, seasonal conditions, and environmental pressures. Weather patterns are becoming less predictable due to climate change. These uncertainties make it impossible to eliminate risk entirely, regardless of safety measures implemented. The international dimension of Yellowstone's visitor population creates additional safety challenges. Visitors from countries with different wildlife, different climates, and different cultural attitudes toward nature may not understand the risks they face. Language barriers can prevent effective communication of safety information. Different legal systems and insurance arrangements complicate emergency response and liability issues. The park has developed multilingual safety materials and works with international tour operators to improve safety education, but the scale of the challenge continues to grow as international visitation increases. Some of the most serious accidents at Yellowstone have involved international visitors who may not have understood the warnings or cultural context of safety information. The long-term sustainability of current visitation levels at Yellowstone is questionable from both safety and resource protection perspectives. Increased crowding leads to more accidents, more environmental damage, and degraded visitor experiences. Some areas of the park are approaching or exceeding their carrying capacity for safe visitor use. Potential solutions include reservation systems, visitor caps, increased entrance fees, or seasonal restrictions. But each approach has economic and political implications that complicate implementation. The fundamental tension between access and safety may ultimately require difficult choices about how many people can safely visit Yellowstone and under what conditions. The legacy of past accidents and fatalities at Yellowstone continues to influence current safety policies and visitor behavior. Memorial sites and warning signs serve as reminders of past tragedies, but they may also attract dark tourists who are drawn to locations associated with death and danger. The balance between honoring victims and avoiding sensationalism is delicate and constantly evolving. The families of accident victims often become advocates for improved safety measures, bringing personal perspectives to policy discussions that might otherwise focus solely on statistics and regulations. Their stories humanize the abstract concept of wilderness risk and provide powerful motivation for safety improvements. The technological solutions being developed for wilderness safety show promise, but also have limitations. GPS devices and satellite communicators can summon help more quickly, but they cannot prevent accidents from occurring. Improved weather forecasting provides better information for trip planning, but cannot eliminate the risk of sudden storms. Advanced medical equipment allows for better field treatment of injuries, but cannot overcome the fundamental challenges of providing care in remote locations. The integration of technology into wilderness experiences also raises philosophical questions about the nature of wilderness itself. Does the presence of GPS devices and satellite communicators fundamentally alter the wilderness experience? How much technological assistance is appropriate in natural settings that are supposed to provide escape from modern life? The climate change implications for Yellowstone's safety profile are significant and largely negative. Changing precipitation patterns affect flash flood risks and stream crossings. Rising temperatures may expand the range of disease-carrying insects and alter wildlife behavior patterns. More extreme weather events increase the likelihood of visitors being caught in dangerous conditions. The thermal features that make Yellowstone unique may also be affected by climate change, though the mechanisms are complex and not fully understood. Changes in groundwater levels, precipitation patterns, and surface temperatures could alter the behavior of geysers and hot springs in unpredictable ways. The psychological research on risk perception in natural environments reveals consistent patterns that help explain why intelligent, educated people continue to make dangerous decisions at Yellowstone. The optimism bias leads people to believe that bad things are more likely to happen to others than to themselves. The availability heuristic causes people to underestimate risks that they haven't personally experienced or witnessed. Or the illusion of control is particularly relevant to Yellowstone visitors, who may believe that their experience, preparation, or caution will protect them from dangers that have killed others. This illusion is reinforced by the park's infrastructure, which creates the impression that risks are managed and controlled by authorities. The group dynamics that affect risk-taking behavior are also important at Yellowstone. People often take greater risks when traveling in groups, assuming that others will provide assistance if needed. The bystander effect can prevent group members from intervening when they observe dangerous behavior. Social pressure within groups can encourage risk-taking as a form of bonding or status display. The seasonal variations in Yellowstone's dangers reflect both environmental changes and visitor behavior patterns. Summer brings the highest visitation levels, but also the most favorable weather conditions. Spring and fall offer fewer crowds but more unpredictable weather and increased wildlife activity. Winter presents extreme cold and limited access, but also unique opportunities for solitude and natural observation. Each season requires different safety considerations and risk management strategies. The park's staffing levels, facility operations, and emergency response capabilities all vary seasonally, affecting the level of safety support available to visitors. The educational background and life experience of Yellowstone visitors create a wide spectrum of risk awareness and wilderness skills. Urban visitors may have extensive formal education, but little practical experience with natural hazards. Rural visitors may have outdoor experience, but in different environments with different risks. International visitors may have wilderness experience, but in ecosystems with different dangers and different cultural approaches to risk management. The challenge for park personnel is to provide safety information that is relevant and accessible to this diverse audience, while avoiding both oversimplification and information overload. The most effective safety education appears to be specific, immediate, and personally relevant rather than general or abstract. The legal framework governing liability and responsibility at Yellowstone reflects broader societal debates about personal responsibility versus institutional duty of care. The Federal Tort Claims Act provides some protection for the National Park Service against lawsuits, but successful claims have been filed in cases involving inadequate warnings or negligent maintenance of facilities. The trend toward increased litigation has influenced park policies and procedures, sometimes in ways that prioritize legal protection over visitor experience or resource protection. The fear of lawsuits can lead to overly restrictive policies or excessive warning signage that may actually reduce safety by creating information overload or encouraging visitors to ignore all warnings. The international comparisons of national park safety policies reveal different approaches to balancing access and risk. Some countries provide more extensive infrastructure and safety measures in their national parks, while others maintain more primitive conditions and place greater responsibility on individual visitors. The American approach at Yellowstone represents a middle ground that satisfies neither those who want maximum safety nor those who prefer minimal development. The cultural significance of Yellowstone as America's first national park adds symbolic weight to safety decisions that might be purely practical in other contexts. Changes to access policies or safety measures are often viewed as precedents that could affect the entire national park system. The balance between preservation and access that was established at Yellowstone continues to influence park management philosophy throughout the United States. The generational changes in visitor expectations and risk tolerance reflect broader cultural shifts in American society. Younger visitors may have less direct experience with natural hazards, but more exposure to extreme sports and risk-taking activities. Older visitors may have more wilderness experience, but less physical capability to respond to emergencies. These generational differences require adaptive approaches to safety education and risk management. The technological capabilities available to modern visitors create both opportunities and challenges for wilderness safety. GPS devices and satellite communicators can summon help more quickly, but they may also encourage visitors to venture into more dangerous areas with false confidence in their ability to call for rescue. Social media platforms allow rapid sharing of safety information, but also rapid spread of dangerous behaviors and misinformation. The long-term trends in accident rates and fatality patterns at Yellowstone provide insights into the effectiveness of different safety interventions and the impact of changing visitor demographics. Some types of accidents have decreased due to improved infrastructure and education, while others have increased due to higher visitation levels and changing visitor behavior. The analysis of these trends helps guide resource allocation for safety improvements and identifies emerging risks that may require new approaches. However, the relatively small number of accidents each year makes statistical analysis challenging, and apparent trends may reflect random variation rather than systematic changes. The global context of wilderness safety management provides perspective on Yellowstone's approach and outcomes. Comparison with similar sites in other countries reveals different cultural attitudes toward risk and responsibility. Some countries accept higher accident rates in exchange for less restrictive access policies, while others prioritize safety over access to a greater degree than the United States. These international comparisons help identify the range of possible approaches to wilderness safety management and their associated trade-offs. However, direct comparison is complicated by differences in legal systems, cultural values, visitor demographics, and natural hazards. The future challenges facing Yellowstone's safety management include climate change impacts, increasing visitation levels, changing visitor demographics, and evolving technology. Each of these factors will require adaptive management approaches that balance multiple competing objectives. Climate change may alter the frequency and severity of natural hazards in unpredictable ways. Increasing visitation will strain both infrastructure and natural resources while increasing the statistical likelihood of accidents. Changing visitor demographics may require new approaches to safety education and risk communication. Evolving technology will create new opportunities for safety improvement, but also new risks and complications. The institutional memory and organizational culture of the National Park Service reflect decades of experience managing public access to dangerous natural areas. This experience provides valuable guidance for addressing new challenges, but it may also create resistance to necessary changes in approach or policy. The balance between continuity and adaptation in park management requires careful consideration of both historical lessons and emerging challenges. The goal is to preserve the essential character and values of the national park experience while adapting to changing conditions and visitor needs. The ultimate question raised by Yellowstone's hidden dangers is whether modern society can maintain a healthy relationship with truly wild and dangerous natural forces. The park provides one of the few remaining opportunities for most Americans to encounter nature on its own terms, without the safety nets and control systems that characterize modern life. The illusion that these forces can be controlled or made safe reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of humanity's place in the natural world. We are not the dominant species in wilderness settings, regardless of our technology or infrastructure. We are visitors in ecosystems that operated for millions of years without us and could continue to operate without us. This realization is both humbling and liberating. It frees us from the impossible burden of trying to control natural forces and allows us to appreciate them on their own terms. It also requires us to accept responsibility for our own choices and their consequences in ways that modern life rarely demands. The true value of Yellowstone may lie not in its safety or accessibility, but in its capacity to remind us of these fundamental truths about our relationship with the natural world. The park's hidden dangers are not flaws to be corrected, but essential features that preserve its authenticity and educational value. The deaths and injuries that occur at Yellowstone are tragedies for the individuals and families involved, but they are also reminders of the real stakes involved in wilderness experiences. They demonstrate that nature remains wild and dangerous despite our best efforts to manage and control it. Perhaps the most important thing Yellowstone doesn't want you to know is that it cannot protect you from yourself or from the natural forces that created it. That protection must come from your own knowledge, preparation, and judgment. The park can provide information and infrastructure, but it cannot eliminate the fundamental risks involved in encountering truly wild places. This knowledge is both sobering and empowering. It places the responsibility for wilderness safety where it ultimately belongs, with the individuals who choose to enter wild places. It also preserves the authentic wilderness experience that makes such places valuable in the first place. The hidden dangers of Yellowstone are not secrets to be exposed, but realities to be acknowledged and respected. They are part of what makes the park a genuine wilderness, rather than an outdoor theme park. They preserve the possibility of authentic encounter with natural forces that operate beyond human control. In the end, Yellowstone's greatest danger may not be its thermal features, wildlife, or extreme weather, but the illusion that such places can be made completely safe without destroying what makes them valuable. The park's hidden truth is that some experiences worth having require accepting risks that cannot be eliminated. This acceptance of risk is not recklessness, but wisdom. The recognition that some things in life are worth the dangers they entail. Yellowstone offers the opportunity to encounter the natural world on its own terms, with all the beauty and terror that such encounters involve. The choice to accept or reject that opportunity and its associated risks remains with each visitor who passes through the park's gates. The question is not whether Yellowstone can be made safe, but whether we have the wisdom to appreciate its dangers as an essential part of its value. The park's hidden truth is that its dangers are not hidden at all. They are simply ignored by visitors who prefer comfortable illusions to uncomfortable realities. Those who choose to see Yellowstone clearly, with full awareness of its dangers and their own limitations, may find something there that cannot be found in safer, more controlled environments. They may discover what it means to be human in a world that operates according to forces far greater than human will or technology. This discovery comes with a price, measured in vigilance, preparation, and acceptance of risk. But for those willing to pay that price, Yellowstone offers something increasingly rare in modern life: the opportunity to encounter the world as it actually is rather than as we wish it to be.